Welcome to the Physicians Lounge here at Fantasy Football Advice, where we will be dissecting players for your fantasy football success. Today, we will be looking at A.J. Green, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals. Specifically, we're going to look at the subjective and objective information, take a look at some analytics, take a look at a scouting report, break down the player from a medical perspective and an NFL perspective to help us come up with an actual plan for the player. Let's go ahead and get started. A.J. Green in the 2018 season suffered from turf toe, and actually he had it multiple times. But specifically, he actually had this injury was an injury that actually cost him the rest of the season. He missed the last 4 games because of the turf toe injury, and it was to his right foot. And it's really important to understand that it was his right. So real briefly, without getting into too much detail, is what is turf toe? If you have a good understanding of it, it will help you come to your own conclusion about what to do with A.J. Green. So turf toe, the simplest definition of turf toe is really that it's a sprain of the main joint of the big toe. So it happens when the toe is bent up into hyperextension. So what does that mean? So when there's any type of push-off in a sprinting position, for example, that toe gets stuck flat on the ground. And so that's what you see in that bottom picture. That's the typical position of the foot when a turf toe injury occurs. You can see, well, that's a really big deal because that's the position a wide receiver is in at the start of every single snap. So that's the position the wide receiver is in, and that's the position that the toe is in when an actual turf toe injury occurs. It's a very vague injury. One or more of these different components could be injured. So it could be the plantar plate, it could be the collaterals, it could be the hallucis brevis, it could be that the sesamoid bones, those 2 bones that are like the kneecap, are fractured. Who knows? We don't know, actually. We just know that he had a grade 3 injury in December. In October, what was his grade? So he had a turf toe injury in October of 2018, and it was unknown what that grade was. All we know is that it cost him 3 games. So he had turf toe. We didn't know the severity of it. It cost him 3 games. He rested those 3 games, came back, and then in December, we know he had a grade 3 injury, and that ended his season. He missed 4 games. Could he have had a grade 3 injury and it wasn't diagnosed as a grade 3, so there's more damage to the toe than originally thought? That's a possibility. Could it have been a grade 1 or a grade 2, and then it was poorly managed and it got progressively worse? That's another possibility. So we know for a fact that he ended up having surgical intervention. Now, when it comes to turf toe surgery, surgical intervention is very rare. It does not happen very often. So when he had it in October, he obviously didn't have toe surgery. And then when he had it in December, he underwent the knife. It's important to realize that surgery is not necessary for treating turf toe. However, if the symptoms persist or if the athletic play is affected, surgery could or could not be an option, but it's usually only done for grade 3 injuries. And the long-term outcome is, unfortunately, unknown. We don't really know the long-term outcome. We know that for turf toe injuries, if they're addressed early, they heal very well. So, again, that leads me back to October. Was it handled well? I've done this procedure several times, and it can be a very mixed bag in terms of outcome. I've had some really good results, and I've had some other results where the surgery didn't do a whole lot to benefit the patient. So long-term complications include poor push-off strength, which he does every day. You can gain stiffness in the area, or the big toe, it's cocking up in the air indefinitely. So the position of the toe gets compromised. So the scouting report of A.J. Green, we already talked about push-off. We know that this surgery will limit his push-off ability. And A.J. Green is a phenomenal player. I love watching A.J. Green play. And one of the things that I appreciate the most about A.J. Green is that every route looks like a go route until it's not. So he sells that 9 route or that go route extremely well. And that part of his game really gets compromised because of the potential loss of strength when it comes to push-off. The next thing is, when you look analytically at him, both coming out of college and currently in the NFL, measurable attributes, his 2 best attributes have been his speed. So he was in the top 90th percentile in terms of speed coming out of college. And then his balance, his ability to change direction, not round his routes, and be very square in and out of his breaks. Well, in order for that to happen, you need great balance and you need push-off strength, not just in the start of your route, but also getting in and out of the route. Well, that gets compromised, as you can see from an anatomical standpoint. He will be very limited in regards to being able to push in and out of those routes because his balance gets compromised. The big toe joint is so important when it comes to balance, having good center of gravity, and being able to really push off with an explosiveness and change of direction. So you can see that this is the type of injury that can really impact his game. The next thing that we need to think about is that nobody's talking about. If you look at any other, NFL analysis or fantasy football analysis, no one's talking about his 2014 turf toe injury. So he's had this already back in 2014, and back then it cost him 2 games. He did not undergo surgical intervention. So this has been really a chronic problem that now may have just, he's met his match. He dealt with this before, and now it's just gotten progressively worse. It came back, and now it's required surgery. So this is something that's not getting progressively better, but it's something that's becoming a chronic issue. At age 31, he's dealing with his first chronic injury. It's one thing to deal with something that's of chronic nature when you're younger, but it's a whole nother beast when you have to deal with something that's of chronic nature as you get older. So all these things are a concern. We don't know what's happening with Andy Dalton. His talent level is capped. We have to take into consideration the 2014 turf toe injury, which I think is playing a role today. I'm sure it healed back then and it allowed him to be successful. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of wear and tear at that joint that we're not maybe aware of. And then his age is a concern. So what do we do with him? Really, I think you play the odds. And what I mean by that is, I don't necessarily want to hate the player, but I want to hate his ADP. So play the odds and see where he's going to end up. If you're able to be patient and try to hit your blackjack and try to hit that score of 21, a 21 to me would be that you can grab him in the 4th round. But I've seen drafts where he's going in the middle of the 2nd round. I think it's too high because there's too many players that have higher upside and have and are really safer options or have a higher floor. If he drops to the 3rd round, I still think that's too high. I think that there are still, again, other players that are safer options and that have higher upsides. There's too much unknown with A.J. Green. I love the player. I think he is excellent in terms of his route running ability. But at age 31, with this real difficult injury history and a lot that's unknown in terms of what's happening at the big toe joint, I think you have to be patient with him and roll the dice and see, can you wait on him in the 4th round? If he's there in the 4th round, it's hard to pass up on him. But anything earlier, I think you're playing a high-risk game with A.J. Green.